astray, He calls us to His better way. He gave His Son for men to die, to buy us back so you and I could go to live with Him on high, that better place beyond the sky. So if your troubles got you down, you worry and you wear a frown, remember what love's promise brings, for God is planning better things than we have seen, better things than we have dreamed. Rejoice and let your heart take wings, for God is planning better things. So rejoice and let your heart be light on heavenly treasures set your side. Each faithful follower knows and sings that God is planning better things than we have seen, better things than we have dreamed. Rejoice and let your heart take wings, for God is planning better things. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for them that love Him. Come and rejoice in His love. Better things than we have seen, better things than we have dreamed. Rejoice and let your heart take wings, for God is planning better things. Yes, God is planning better things. Our God is planning better things.
All right, Brother Tim has agreed to share his testimony tonight. Appreciate Brother Tim. He helps us on Wednesdays. He's our chaplain with our young men. Everybody loves Brother Tim, and so let's listen to what the Lord's done for him.
I appreciate the message this morning. I was just telling Brother Micah last night that I have a bad habit of presuming to know things that I don't have a clue about. And when I knelt down there this morning, all I could think of to say was just tell the Lord I didn't know anything. I know even less than I thought I did. So I guess that's a good place to be in. My testimony, I didn't have a really long, long drawn out, I got saved pretty quick, I guess is the way I should say. Mom had always took me and Denise to church when we were kids, and I always said my prayers before I went to bed at night. But one night when I was 13, I started saying, oh man, I saw myself as a sinner that night. And I realized I really didn't have any business asking God for anything as a sinner. And I just repented of my sins and believed on the Lord Jesus. And my dad, he was as happy as I guess you could say a lost man could be, because he wasn't saved at the time, and he didn't get saved till I was an adult. But praise the Lord for that. A lot of answered prayers. And there's something else I wanted to share with y'all. Y'all remember a few years ago I was hospitalized, and it was through the Christmas holidays. And my family came and visited me on Christmas Day. And it was about a 30 or 45 minute visit. And when they had to leave, I didn't want them to see how much it was hurting me, them leaving. And I'm sure they didn't want me to see that it was hurting them to leave me. And so we got through it, and when they got out of sight, I was really hurting. I was holding it together, but inside I was really hurting. And I had my Bible laying there on the table. And I reached and got my Bible and just opened it up and started reading, and I couldn't tell you where I was reading. I don't know if it was the Old Testament or New Testament. I don't remember a thing about it. And I don't believe it really mattered. I needed to read my Bible. And I opened that up and started reading. And I don't know how long I read. I don't think it was long. It could have been a few moments. But in the course of reading the scripture I was reading, there was a peace come over me. I won't even try to describe what it felt like. I've only shared this with a couple of people, and Brother Micah was one of them, and I told him it felt like I had already passed and went to heaven. It was that kind of peace. And I don't know why I've wanted to share that, but I haven't, and I don't know why I haven't, unless it's just pride. You know, I think us guys don't want to look sensitive, and we don't want to admit to feeling tore up on the inside. And I think it was just pride that I haven't shared that. But really, when you do that, I think it's a form of withholding praise, and that's not good. For whatever reason, it's not good. When the Lord does something for you great like He did, and He did it. I was at the bottom. I grabbed my Bible and started reading it, and the peace it wasn't of this world. I believe that's what heaven will feel like all the time. It won't, there was a time when I stopped feeling that overwhelming peace. I don't believe it'll be like that when we're with the Lord. And that's just a couple testimonies. There are more. I wouldn't have, I believe as the writer of Hebrews said, the time would fail him, the time would fail me. I couldn't stand here and tell you everything the Lord has done. The mighty things He's done for me, I shouldn't let myself get down like I do, but I do. And I guess that's just the flesh and Satan and the world. But He's been faithful. And I'll add this. I don't talk about the loss of my wife much, because I don't want people to think that I'm feeling sorry for myself. I know people go through loss. Everybody's life has loss. But when I lost my wife, everybody around me was just crashing, and I wasn't. And I know that was him. It was him then, it's still him now. I know that was him. He's given me a lot of opportunities. Appreciate the time I get to spend with our mighty men and the leaders of our mighty men. They have prepared me for something I would have never dreamed of. Being able to stand in front of them and talk to them. It's helped me to stand up here and talk now, but it's helped me when me and Brother Micah and Brother Jonathan talked to inmates in the Pulaski County Prison. There's no way I could have done that. Just started doing it. Just decided to start doing it. There's no way I could have just started doing that. And of course God knew that. That's why he got me started with the boys. I know that's why. He's always preparing us for things we don't know he's preparing us for. And some of that preparation may not feel too good at the time. We might not necessarily be enjoying it, but that's what he's doing. I believe that. So I hope that's a blessing to y'all. I'm glad Brother Josiah asked me if I would give my testimony, because I've really been wanting to share that and just didn't know how to get started and do it till he asked me this morning. I thought I gotta do it tonight. And like I said, there are other things, and I'll try to be better about sharing mighty things that the Lord does for me. I think these testimony services, I think they're good. Gives you a chance to tell about things the Lord done for you that you otherwise wouldn't.
Brother Tim, yeah, the Lord used you tonight to help me. Have you ever been listening to Brother Mark or somebody preach, and then you get through, and the Lord speaks to you in some way, some special way, that just you and him know what's going on, and doesn't have nothing to do with what Brother Mark was preaching? And that's what the Lord's done for me tonight, just already. So I appreciate that, brother. Does anybody have a special song before I ask Brother Mike to come up? Caitlin. Carly, Kaylin, Caleb, Connor.
hard to see it now. You feel you're walking all alone, but He is there, no doubt. When the storm around you rages and you're tossed to and fro, when you're faced with life's decisions, not sure which way to go, stand still and let God move. Standing still is hard to do. When you feel you have reached the end, He'll make a way for you. Stand still and let God move. When the enemy surrounds you and the walls are closing in, when the tide is swiftly rising and you wonder where He's been, there has never been a moment that His arms weren't reaching out, so you can rest assured and be secure. God is moving right now. Stand still and let God move. Standing still is hard to do. When you feel you have reached the end, He'll make a way for you. Stand still and let God move. The answer will come, but only in His time. Stand still and let God move. Standing still is hard to do. When you feel you have reached the end, He'll make a way for you. Stand still and let God move. Stand still and let God move.
Well, that was a blessing. Buddy, I'm so nervous I couldn't get the lid off that thing. Maybe he loosened it. But I've never been in this pulpit or any pulpit that I've not been nervous. I don't think it's ever got any easier. And it's probably the hottest place I've ever stood. Every time I've ever been here, I broke out in sweat. But I guess it's supposed to be hot right here. This is where all the fires are built, see? That's right. I thought about my testimony today, and I want to do two things of anything that come out of it, and it's glorify God and help somebody. And I believe Brother Tim's testimony's done that for sure. So I appreciate that. I got saved when I was 20 years old. If you were raised in church, would you raise your hand? Would you raise them back up and everybody look around? If you was not raised in church, would you raise your hand? Now everybody look around. these kids in these church are a blessing to see them here. To see moms and dads. Sometimes it's just moms, and sometimes it might be just dads that brings them, but it's a blessing to see them here. I've seen, from what time we've been here, I've seen them brought in as babies, and now they're up walking, talking, playing the piano, singing. Yes. You cannot put a price on that. Amen. Right. I was not raised in church. I didn't know nothing about church, didn't know nothing about God, didn't know nothing about Jesus. I'd always heard there was a God. I'd always heard about Jesus, and that right there is all I could have told you about it. My mom and dad divorced when I was about 7.5, going on to 8, about Lincoln's age. My mom was it's hard to say that about my mom because I loved her. And I still love her. But my mom was wild, and she liked to drink. And when she liked to drink, she liked to fight. And we've had, as kids, had to fight our way out at times, and just to be able to get in the car and leave. My dad was a little wild, not as bad, but my dad worked 30 years on the railroad, and probably at least 20 of that or more he worked away. So he was at home, but on the weekends. So what I'm trying to say is we didn't have no one that took us to a church or any church. We didn't have anyone to talk to us about that. But I had a grandma and grandpa. As fine as people they were, they did not sit us down and talk to us about the Lord or about anything like that. They were old people. They were old people when I was, as far back as I can remember. They were old then. And they helped raise us 3 boys. They helped raise us. We were switched back and forth a lot. And if you Les and China Bryant, and my grandpa was a very strict old man, and but my grandma, she was full of love. That's the only love I knowed. If you knew China Bryant, you were blessed. If you didn't know her, you missed out. She was that type of woman. All of her kids called her mom. All the grandkids called her mom. We didn't call her grandmother or mama. We called her mom. She was mom because she was a mom. When we were there a lot through the summer, and a lot of times we were left there. But when we were there, we was home. The only place that I felt I was at home. But that old man and woman didn't have any business raising us. But they done what they could do, and if they were one person on this earth that was praying for me, it was that woman. I'm settled on that. I know that woman was praying for me. Me and Joanne started dating in high school, and when I say I didn't know nothing about church or anything about God, I mean I didn't know nothing. I'm amazed what my grandkids already know at their age. Sometimes Lincoln he blows my mind. And I know the other two's going to follow. And I appreciate the people in this church and in this school over here that pours into my grandkids. You don't know how much I appreciate that. And I love you for that. But we had started dating, and I was living with my mom at the time. And I remember, I have forgotten a lot, but I remember me and her met in the summertime, and then when school started back, I remember she called, and I was talking to her on the phone, that thing that you hang on the wall, and it didn't even have push buttons. You had to stick a finger in there, and your privacy depended on how long the cord was. So I remember when we got a 25-foot cord. I remember that. When you're a teenager and you're dating a 25-foot cord. But I remember her calling one time and wanted to know if I wanted to come over to her house and visit. And I said yes. And she said, by the way, we're going to church, me and Mom and Dad. And she was raised in church. Her mom and dad took her. And she said, we're going to church. And I'm like, okay. So I went, and Cedar Grove Church, Silas Gregory was preaching, and I don't know what he preached, but I remember he preached very hard on sin. It was a very hard message on sin. And his eyes would lock on me, and I turned my head. And I would look back, and it would just be a minute or a few seconds, and his eyes would lock back on me again. Especially when he was getting to one of those really points. And I'm telling you the truth, I thought that her dad, I thought James had slipped and told him who I was and what I was before we got there. Now, up to this point, I'd probably only been in a church maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, and probably 2 of them was a funeral. The other 2 times was, I remember catching a bus one time at my grandma and grandpa's house, and we went to, I believe, First Baptist Church in Whitley for Bible school, for vacation Bible school. And I went with my grandpa one time, either to Taylor Ridge or Sand Hill, one time, and that's it. And I was small then. But that day when he was preaching, I felt it was at me. I felt like I'm the only one sitting in here. James had to tell him who I was. And I had one thought, and that was, if I get out of here, I'm never coming back. And I told myself that, and I was serious with myself. A week or 2 passed by, I don't know, and she called and wanted to know if I wanted to come over, and by the way, we're going to church. It was her and her mom that time. I thought, well, I'll go. So I went, and it was the same man saying the same things to the same person. That's the way I felt. And I had the same thought. I get out of here, I ain't never coming back. I've always been very backward. Never been outspoken. But I've been very busy. During the daylight hours, I was very busy. It was hard-pressed to catch me sitting down somewhere during daylight hours. But at night time, when it's time to lay down and go to bed, I had a lot of troubles. And that's when conviction started setting in. But here's the problem. I didn't know it was conviction. Sometimes we don't think about that. We don't think about what people might not know, see. Just because they've always been here, just because they've always been raised up here in this church. Sometimes they just might not know. I didn't know what conviction was, but I know it was very heavy. It was very heavy. I don't know if I can explain it anymore, put into words what it felt like. And I remember laying in bed at night with that feeling and didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have anybody to ask about it, to talk to about it. I didn't know. And I don't know, maybe if I did have somebody, I wouldn't have done it anyway. That was just me. But I remember it being very heavy, and I have fell asleep, be late, and fell asleep under conviction. Wake up, it'd be there. That'd be the first thought that I'd have the next morning. And so I would get busy. I'd stay busy. I was working. I was doing something. I was all the time. And I was fine during the day. But it was at night when I laid down, all of that would come back. And I wondered about myself. I wondered about dying and going to hell. I know that much about that part of it. I didn't know what to do. I literally did not know what to do. But see, sometimes God, and I've learned this through the years, and a lot of times I've learned this after I've been through it, and you're looking back. You look back and you see things, Brother Tim. You look back and you see God's hand, how he was working. And sometimes God's working things over here and God's working things over here. And we're all wrapped up in this, and this is all we can see. But God's doing something right here, and next thing you know, he's brought them two things together just like that. That's God. Everybody in here that's been a Christian any time knows that for sure and has seen that. See, God knew I didn't know what to do about it. I don't know the day that I got saved. I don't know the date that I got saved. It was sometime toward the end of May or the 1st of June, and I know it had to be on the weekend because my dad called me and wanted to know if I wanted to go fishing. So that meant he was home on the weekend. So it had to be probably a Saturday. But I was living with my mom, and he called, wanted to know if I wanted to go fishing, and I told him yes. And so I went to his house, and he said, we're going to, I got in the truck with him, and he said, we're going to stop down here and pick up Penn. She's going to go with us. Dad's older sister, everybody called her Penn. Her real name was Alpha. So Alpha or Penn. I don't know where she got Penn from, but everybody called her Penn except for her husband. He called her Penny. But Dad said, we're going to stop. They were a godly man and woman. She's gone on to be with the Lord now, and he's still living. But he said, we're going to stop down here and get Penn on the way. She's going to go with us. So we pulled up in the driveway that day, and my uncle is sitting on the front porch reading his Bible. Dad gets out. We pulled right up in front of the carport. Dad gets out and walks down that way onto the carport in the kitchen door. And I got out of the truck on this side, and he was sitting about where Kendall is from me. And I took about 2 or 3 steps. And that's the day, because I was running, I didn't know nothing about conviction. All I know to do was run from it. I guess that's a natural instinct. So I just ran from it. And God knew that. But that day, God put a roadblock in front of me. I took about 3 steps, and he stood up and stepped over in front of me just to stop me in my tracks, just like that. And he said, Mike, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing okay. He didn't talk about fishing. He didn't talk about anything else. He said, I hear that you're fixing to get married. And I said, yeah, we're going to get married in July. And he said, Miss Joanne, isn't it? And I said, yes. He said, I've met her a couple of times. He said, she seems like a fine young lady. And he's baiting me up is what he's doing, and I didn't know it. And I said, yeah, she's I thought so anyway. She's a fine girl. He wouldn't tell me nothing new. But he said, then he said this. He said, I hear she's also a Christian girl. And I felt like, in a way, I thought, yeah, I was ready to brag about her. He said, yes. I said, yes, she is a Christian girl. And he said, so she's saved and ready for heaven. And I said, yeah, I believe so. And then he said, how about you? And I looked at him and I said, what? He said, how about you, Brother Mike? He said, are you saved and ready for heaven? And at that very moment, every bit of that conviction just, and it was heavy. And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, would you like to be? You can be if you would like to be. Would you like to be? And before I even thought, it just like that, I said, yes. I felt like that I had ran as far as I could run. But I still didn't know what to do, Brother Mark. I just answered his question, and I answered it true and honest, but I still didn't know what to do. But God's working this thing, see? And then my uncle said, we can get down right here in this yard and pray. And he said, and I'll help you And he said, I'll help lead you to the Lord. He said, but you're going to have to believe it from your heart, or it's not going to work. And he said, but if you'll believe it, he said, the Lord will save you right here. And I said, I believe it. And we got down, and he led me to the Lord, and I received the Lord Jesus Christ that day in his yard. I've never been the same. I've never been the same since that day. There have been a lot of times to where I've not felt saved. There's been times to where I didn't feel like I was saved for a minute, much less for a day. But I heard Adrian Rogers say something one time that has stuck with me, and he said that we get too wrapped up in our feelings, and he said our feelings is the shallowest part of our nature. And he said, but God's salvation is the deepest work of God. And he said, therefore, God don't do his deepest work in our shallowest parts. And that has helped me a lot with my feelings, Brother Mark. I've made a lot of mistakes after that. But I know this. The Lord's always the same. He's not changed his mind, and he's not changed his mind about me. I hope I help someone that they don't make the mistakes that I've made.
Sound like your uncle was a pretty good fisherman. He got caught. I appreciate that. Well, surely we can't hear testimonies like that without the Lord stirring up something in your heart. Does anybody have? You got a song, brother? Caleb's got a song.
True. could not pray. Still my God, He was faithful to me. The days I spent so selfishly, reaching out for what pleased me, even then God was faithful to me. Every time I come back to Him, He's been waiting with open arms, and I see once again He's been faithful, faithful to me. Looking back, His love and mercy I see. Though in my heart I have questioned, even failed to believe, yet He's been faithful, faithful to me. He's been faithful, faithful to me. Looking back, His love and mercy I see. Though in my heart I have questioned, even failed to believe, yet He's been faithful, faithful to me. Yes, in my heart I have questioned, even failed to believe, yet He's been faithful, faithful to me.
Thought of when Brother Mike first started there, he asked how many were raised in church. I don't know anything about that, about not knowing that life. I'm generations removed from that on both sides of my family, and I try to help put that in perspective for my children. They know even less. I said, we don't even know the struggles some people go through, and we've got a lot to be thankful for. Brother Mark was talking about the man with the testimony hadn't been saved out of those things, and compared it to some of our children here. We don't even know what we've missed, the bad that we've missed. We don't even know, unless you get a glimpse of it here and there in other people's lives. We have a lot to be thankful for, having missed those things. I appreciate these testimonies tonight. It's been a blessing. Does anybody else have something they'd like to say? A word of testimony.